This morning we are on the way to the cross, to the empty tomb. We're busy with our lives and we are trying desperately to figure out a way to make meaningful a season which makes all the difference in our Christian experience. We've thought about several different things as we come to this particular Sunday. We've thought about how we are or are not stumbling blocks. We thought about the necessity to give up the unnecessary judgments and catching in on what others say, whether they have truth or not. We talked about getting the right measure. We talked about making the most of what we have as Christians. And today, I want to spend a few minutes on talking about the habits that we have as Christians. The habits that we possess and use and rely upon and repeat as Christians. Will you bow your heads, please? Holy and loving God, hear us as we come to you in these moments and we ask for your word for us. Speak to us through your holy word and help us each one to look for and to expect and to know that you will speak to us. Hear your servant, and by the power of your Spirit, let these words be yours. For we make our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Our passage this morning comes from the Gospel according to St. Luke, the 9th chapter, beginning with the 10th verse. This once again brings us to a passage that we could almost quote without any difficulty. The story of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus, who was not very tall, who had heard that Jesus was coming to town. Zacchaeus, who was a person that most had little regard for. Zacchaeus, who had cheated others. Zacchaeus, who had chosen to be that one that would pick up on the opportunities that were presented to him. Zacchaeus, who called out to Jesus after climbing up in the tree. And Jesus said, Zacchaeus, come down from there, for I'm going to your house to eat today. Zacchaeus, come down from there because I need to be with you. We know that story. We've repeated it 1,000 times in Sunday school and heard it from the pulpits over and over again. But let's look a little more closely at what is going on for Zacchaeus. The reason why he was so despised was the fact that he was the chief tax collector. The chief tax collector that allowed him to be wrongly wealthy. It was easy to be able to impose the taxes, but then it was more that there was a little bit more to be had. And then on top of that, as he sent his lieutenants out into the world to collect the taxes where Zacchaeus couldn't do it, there was a little bit more for them. And so consequently, Zacchaeus came to be most despised. And so when Jesus said to Zacchaeus, I'm going to your house today, everybody kind of looked at each other and thought, why in the world is the master bothering with somebody as rotten as Zacchaeus? But Zacchaeus turned around and he said, if I have cheated anyone, I will repay them more. It was the habit that Zacchaeus had picked up. It was the habit of getting into that money that made him who he was. But let us remember that there is absolutely nothing that God cannot redeem, even our bad habits. Now, when we think about our habits, we think about the things that repeat themselves. Someone has very wisely said that there are 3 elements of a habit: the cue, the routine, and the reward. The cue is the thing that triggers it. The routine is the thing that reinforces it. And the reward is the prize that comes because of it. And every one of us have both good and bad habits. On the good side, we can be people that can be very compassionate and merciful and kind and loving. And then on the bad side, sometimes when there's not anybody around, do we really have a lot of pride in what happens? Those habits that creep in, those habits that overtake us, those things that we have begun that we just can't stop. We've seen a lot of that in our world in recent years. Those that get caught up in things not of their making just cannot break free. It's just bigger than they are. It's just bigger than they are and keeps them from being all that they are supposed to be. You see, a habit ultimately is that thing that gets in the way and keeps us from being who we are. I don't even know where I came up with this definition, but I want to share it with you this morning. A habit is something for which we give ourselves no other choice. Something for which we give ourselves no other choice. You think about that. Jennifer tells me all the time that I have this horrible habit of doing the laundry and leaving it in the washing machine without drying it. Or putting it in the washing machine and then the dryer, and then I don't take them out to fold. Isn't that right, sweetheart? But at least they get to the laundry room. Isn't that something? No points for that, I guess, huh? No points for that. It's habits that we develop. Sometimes we don't even realize that we develop them. Sometimes we pick them up as we copy someone else. Like how we treat one another as Christians. How our faith walk unfolds. It is a habit to talk to God. It is a habit to find our way to the Bible and read. It is a habit to find time for prayer. It is a habit to give devotion to God. Now, be there.
One of the things that we really all have are habits. To be here on Sunday morning instead of all of the other places that we could choose to be. The habit of listening compassionately to friends. The habit of remembering that there is some task which God has called us to be about as Christians. That He doesn't just endow us just for us to sit there and hold on to it all. There is nothing that God gives us that we're privileged to hold on to. We are nothing but vessels. And God sends it to us that we might give it away, that God then would be able to give us more. It's a habit that gets us in touch with how God is blessing us every day. It's a habit that keeps us from falling off. Although sometimes it happens anyway. Sometimes it gets in the way anyhow. So let's think about some things that we might be able to do when we do realize that a habit has taken over. First of all, call it by name. Don't pretend it's something else. Call it by name and call it out. The second thing that we do is make up your mind to stop. The next thing to do is to realize that you can replace a bad habit with a good habit. And the last thing that we need to remember is that we are not alone in this world, but rather that God is with us and that God will help us us. And God will provide for us the strength that we need to have when we can't make it. How many of us have had a habit through the years? The powerful. Oh, it may seem trivial. It may seem like it doesn't take that much space on our memory or in our energy. But the fact is, it keeps raising its ugly head. And when it raises its ugly head, it simply gets in the way of our living. And we are not the people that we should be becoming. Those habits that have kept us from being who God made us to be. There's a book that was written by Dr. James W. Moore. As a matter of fact, it's part of the material that I've used for this series, Giving Up Something Bad for Lent. Dr. Moore shares this story in his writing. One of his best friends is a Dr. Don Webb, and Don Webb tells a story on himself. Because you see, Don Webb was born in Wales. He served in the Queen's Navy before coming to America to become a United Methodist minister. He was so proud to be in the Royal Navy and was doubly proud when he was named captain of the HMS Swiffer. He was the ship's captain and he wanted so much to impress his crew. Have you ever been that way where your desire to impress someone else overtakes where you are? He wanted his men to know how wise and brave he was. One of the first assignments that he had to undertake was to go down and check the anchors holding the buoys in place. And he was remembering how much the crew and he had admired the previous captain of that boat. And so they said, the captain always goes down first to check the footings. And Don Webb said, I'll go. The only way to check them was to send down a deep sea diver. Don Webb had never, ever done anything like that before. He had to don the suit that would allow him to go to that proper depth. He didn't know the first thing about it, but he swallowed his pride and he got suited up. And then he made this description. He was scared to death. He put on the leaded shoes, the heavy suit, the thick gloves, and upon the locking of the helmet and the placement of the glass on the front, he suddenly felt the fear, the unfamiliarity, the eerie sounds, the claustrophobia, the queasiness. And then he gave a description of how it was after he jumped off of that boat into the water. The water first was a beautiful blue, clear color, and then green, and then gray, and even black. And then he hit the bottom and felt his feet sink into the mud. And he realized he had no idea what to do next. He panicked and fell forward, and his face suddenly was in the mud at the bottom of the ocean. And he remembered that when he went over and into the water, the crew told him, now this is your lifeline. Whatever you do, don't let go of it. And when he fell forward, he realized he had no idea where that lifeline was. They told him, if you get in trouble, all you have to do is just give that lifeline a tug and we'll help you out. He lost his lifeline and was for certain in his mind that he was about to die. And his mind went through all of the things that happen when you feel like you're there. This is it. My arrogant pride has brought me here. My arrogant pride has brought me to my end. And then suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He realized that the weight of the line is felt, that he must be in trouble. And a more experienced driver had come down from above and had gone to him and had shown him what he needed to do. He let his life on. And he needed help from above. How often do we need that same help in our everyday life? How often do we need that same help from above that only God can provide as we try to navigate the places that we have created for ourselves, as we have chosen the habits that we're going to hold on to? How often have we let those habits get in our way instead of living the life that God has created us to hold on to? What about you today? As you're thinking about your journey to the cross and the empty tomb, as you're thinking about what it is that is allowing you to make that journey, or what is keeping you back, or what is drawing you off of the path to the cross, what about you today as you are wanting to be God's child? Is it clear? Are you making those habits that will allow you to find what God has for you every day? Are you willing to call it by name to get it out of the way? Ask God for help. To realize that you can make a difference and replace it with something else. There are lots of things that we have to take care of on the way to the cross. Are we getting it all out of the way so that God can do with us what He needs to do today? In a few moments, as we sing our closing hymn, this altar is open for your needs. For you to be able to come and spend some time with God. Perhaps you need to make that pew where you now are your altar to be able to talk with God. But my friends, don't allow God's business to be left off. This is an opportunity for you to be able to let God help you with what needs to be. Our hymn is Have Thine Own.